Hey there, Crown Crew family. It's your host, Crown, back with another round of incredible stories that are sure to keep you entertained and maybe even make you think a bit. We've got a mixed bag today, from high school days at a popular fast food chain to a heartwarming yet cautionary tale about family dynamics. We will also dive into an intriguing university experience that turned into a lesson in grassroots organizing, a fence dispute with a surprising twist, and a flight journey that raises questions about politeness and family responsibilities. So grab your favorite snack, settle in, and let's jump right into these fascinating stories. And remember, keep it carefree and easygoing, just like we do here at Crown Corner. Let's go. Way back in the late 19s, during some of my high school years, I worked at a location of the restaurant chain prophesied in Demolition Man to one day be the victor of the fast food wars, along with several other buddies from school. In those days, one could purchase a taco in hard or soft shell form for 79 cents. It was the same then as it is now. Shell, meat, lettuce, cheese. If you wanted the supreme version, which added tomatoes and sour cream, it cost 99 cents. If you wanted to add sour cream to any menu item, it was a 25 cents upcharge. Many people would come in and order a taco with sour cream added, and generally we would repeat it back as a taco supreme no tomatoes, knowing that ringing it up this way saved the person 5 cents. Shocking life hack most people don't know. If anyone asked, we'd explain why we rung it up that way, and most folks were cool about it. But sometimes, and sadly more frequently than one would hope for, it had the jerks who just couldn't comprehend things like logic. That's not what I ordered, and so on. Nowadays, I believe they will be called Karens. Back then, we just called them the C word. When we encountered those people, it wasn't worth my barely minimum wage time to try and explain things like economics or basic math to people, way above my pay grade. So we just say, sorry about that, I'll correct it, and bring it up exactly how they ordered, widely known as a stupid tax. Yeah, it's entirely petty and mostly insignificant when it was only 5 cents per taco, but we were teenagers working part-time at Taco Bell. What do you expect? This was about 10 plus years ago when I had returned to the local university to finish my bachelor's degree in political science. The preface, I was a non-traditional student, so I was a little older and a little more willing to question things. I was taking a 3,000 level political science course, so it was designed for poli-sci majors and was required for my poli-sci degree. It was a fairly basic political science course, but the professor did some weird things. Specifically, there was a quiz every class over the assigned reading. These quizzes made up a significant part of the degree. But here's the tricky part. He seemed to be doing some sort of experiment with the wisdom of crowds. The setup. The correct answer for a quiz question was the answer that was given by the most student in the class. A polarity. Whether it was based in fact or not. Whatever the most students said was the answer, that was a correct answer. For example, if the question was, what year was the US Constitution ratified? Even though the factually correct answer would be 1789, if the majority of the people chose 1776, then 1776 was the right answer and you got credit for your answer. If you chose 1789, you were wrong and didn't get credit. This forced you to make a decision, try to be factually accurate or try to figure out what the crowd was going to do and go with that. Neither guaranteed you a correct answer. The majority of people, the majority of students, would actually choose a factually correct answer. But if it was a common misconception or the question was poorly worded, then that could lead to a situation where the crowd was wrong. But here is what drove me nuts. I was not willing to make my grade dependent on whatever the other student thought might be the correct answer. My grade became dependent on confirming to what the crowd said was true. I had no real control over my grade since the wisdom of the crowd could be anything. A class of 30 students was probably not a large enough crowd to give you a good example of the wisdom of the crowd. Learning the material was not the point. Confirming to the ground was what got you a good grade. Cue malicious compliance and rebellion. I figured out that if we all agreed to choose the same answer for every question, then we could all guarantee ourselves a perfect score on a quiz. In reality, I only needed the plurality of people to go along with my plan. As long as I could muster enough votes for an answer, then we could control our destiny. It didn't matter if A was the correct answer or not. If we controlled the votes, we controlled our grades. If anyone who didn't go with us, they were going to fail regardless of if their answer was actually correct or not. I met everyone at the door to the classroom and explained the plan. For every question, we are going to choose the first option. If it's multiple choice, it's option A. If it's true or false, we are choosing true. If we all agree to this, then we can all get perfect scores. If you decide to go against us, your answer will be wrong. The first class we did this, the professor figured out after a few questions that we were gaming the system. He had us redo the quiz and graded us on the factuality correct answers. He had us redo the quiz and graded us on the factually correct answers. After the second class we did this, the professor changed the rules. There were two answers that would get you full points. The factually correct answer and whatever answer the majority agreed upon. Results, in the end, I was okay with this arrangement. I could study and give the correct answer without being penalized for not conforming to the crowd's thinking. Or if I made the same mistake as a majority of people, then I still got credit for it, and it was a good discussion point for the class. Yes, I got an A in the class. I'm not sure if the professor ever figured out who organized the rebellion, but I did end up working with him in grad school, and we got along just fine. Afterward, I always wondered, did he do this to teach us about the power of grassroots organizing? It might not have been his intention, but he turned me into a leader even though I never wanted to be one. I organized a campaign to overthrow bad leadership, and we created a new regime where truth and discourse were both valued. And we learned that a plurality of voters can determine the path forward even if they are not the majority. P.S. This whole scheme was flawed and subject to the tyranny of the majority. I'm not sure how he didn't see this, it seems pretty basic to me. One, or maybe he was trying to teach us about game theory, I never did figure that out. Two, and let's be honest, if you knew the right answer, trying to figure out what the majority of people would do is a losing proposition. You knew the answer, so trying to figure out how the majority of people could get a question wrong forced you to think opposite to what got you to the correct answer in the first place. 3. Not 100% accurate, but close enough. In a sense, we were randomizing the correct answers, so anyone who wasn't going along with our plan could really only hope for 25 to 30% correct answers, assuming that the distribution of factual answers was random. A few years ago, I was building a new fence for a friend of mine. I had to remove the old sections that were falling apart first, of course. When I got to the intersection of his back fence, his side fence, and the next door neighbor's back fence, I carefully separated the neighbor's fence from his and proceeded to carry on removing the side sections that went between their two properties. My friend had told me that the side section was 100% on his property, and that the previous owner, 30 plus years old, had deliberately given the next door neighbor's property an extra foot or so to ensure that he was building on his own property, without calling for or paying for a survey. The neighbor, Susan, whom I referred to as Karen for the remainder of the story, came running outside screaming at me that I couldn't remove the side fence and it was their property, and just what do I think I'm doing? I responded back very calmly that my friend had told me well in advance that he was going to replace the fence, that he was just going to build it in the same place as the old one, and asked if they were willing to split the costs, to which they declined, no biggie. Karen started screaming at me again, telling me that I had no right to do that, and that my friend didn't give them proper notice, and that she didn't realize that there wouldn't be anything between their properties to contain their dog. By now, I'm about ready to lose my crap, so I knocked on my friend's back door to let him know what was going on, and that he needed to talk to Karen, and that I was leaving because I didn't want to do or say anything I would regret or cause problems with the neighbors for my friend. The entire project got put on hold pending a property survey that was going to cost $650 and that they demanded my friend pay half of it, despite him telling them that the fence was definitely on his property and nothing was going to change with a new fence, and that he was fine with them continuing to have a foot or so of his property so that he didn't have to rock the boat. Fast forward to the following Monday when the surveyor comes out. Turns out the old side fence was not a little on my friend's property, but almost 10 feet onto his property. And the neighbors have built raised flower beds and done a nice brick retaining wall right up along the fence line that they had spent a lot of money just in materials for. Never mind the time they put in constructing it. Needless to say, my friend came away with the biggest grin. For the mere price of $325, he was entitled to expand his yard of more than 30 yards by about 800 square feet. And Karen and her husband, who happened to be the polar opposite of his wife in personality, that was super nice, spent the next week moving their garden, retaining wall, and all of the dirt that was on my friend's property so that I could build a fence on his side of the actual property line. They then hired the cheapest contractors they could find to slap up a fence on their side of the property line. They spent almost as much as my friend did on their new fence. I gave my friend a friends and family discount. 3 years later, the last 20 feet or so of their fence is on the ground already because it was such a bad job that it fell over in a moderate windstorm this past spring. My friend's fence is still standing rock solid and his dogs are definitely making good use of the extra 800 square feet. Okay, so some backstory. I, 21 female, was flying with my 3 siblings, Jacob, 10 male, Sarah, 19 female, and Lucy, 6 female. My dad decided to surprise our stepmom with first-class seats for just the 2 of them on our flight back from our grandma's house. So that left me and my step/half siblings alone in the regular seats. Our cousin attends the same college as me in my home state, but lives in the same state as our grandma. She decided at the last minute to fly out later. She wanted to stay home with our grandma for New Year's Eve, which left an empty seat on a flight. So prior to the flight, my sister Lucy got sick. I think it's the flu, but I don't know. Anyway, I loaded my carry-on with trash bags, Clorox wipes, and card trays in case she got sick on a plane. She was sitting next to me, and in the row directly next to us, my stepsister Sarah, half-brother Jacob, and cousin who didn't show up were supposed/sat. All was fine and dandy. Lucy made it all the way to boarding before she started feeling sick again. I prepared for a flight full of me apologizing and trying to clean. We board and there is a lady sitting in the aisle seat in our row. I kindly asked her if she could move to the window seat because Lucy wasn't feeling well and I wanted her to have easy bathroom access. She argued with me about getting there first before finally moving to the window seat. Once the flight was boarded and the door shut, they told us we had a small delay. I looked across the aisle and saw my siblings had an open seat. They didn't put a standby person in my cousin's seat, which I assumed would happen. So, I turned to the lady sitting next to me in the window and asked her if she wanted to move to that seat. That way she could have her aisle seat back and she wouldn't have to sit with a sick child. The lady then began to yell at me about how rude I was and how she wasn't moving from the seat she paid for. Eventually, the flight attendant came over and asked what was going on, and I explained the situation, and the attendant told me I couldn't ask anyone to move and left. The lady called me a witch and entitled. I later told my stepmom and my dad about it, and they agreed that I was being rude, a jerk, and annoying the poor woman. My mom agreed with me. I was trying to be polite and offer the woman her original seat choice back, but my mom thinks I embarrassed her and my dad. They don't want to fly with me anymore because of this. Was I being a jerk in the situation? I was really genuinely trying to be nice. Now I feel bad. And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, everyone's a jerk. Well, except the lady you asked to move and all the passengers you exposed to a sick child. You are the origin story of this is why we can't have nice things. Another commenter adds, you're the jerk. OP clarifies in a comment that both times a woman said no to moving, OP repeatedly asked, begged, and badgered the woman. OP, I almost always book myself an aisle seat because I'm tall and I'm also prone to motion sickness. I would be pissed if I told someone I didn't want to give up my seat and they continued to ask over and over and over again. The third commenter goes with, not the jerk. While I can see a case for it by asking her to move out of her aisle seat if that is the one she had on her ticket, She could say no, and then a risk is hers if she gets thrown up on. You asked her if she wanted an aisle like her own back, and I think that was showing consideration for her. I think what's happened here is that you were failed by every single adult in the situation. By your parents who are parentifying you and sticking you with a sick child, and then being upset about how you handled it when you are not her parent. By the flight attendant who doesn't seem to understand the difference between telling someone to move and trying to be polite after the lady did you a favor. By this rude lady who couldn't seem to have a filter. I hope you don't fly with them again. They just want a nanny for their younger kids. Make your parents be the parents. My grandpa, a kind-hearted old man with a heart as big as his fortune, is 100 years old, a living testament to history, but age has taken its toll. He suffers from a medical condition that makes it hard for him to say no to anyone, especially family, as he always wants to please us because he feels like he might die any minute and he doesn't want to have any conflict with anyone before dying. And that's where my uncle, the proverbial black sheep of the family, comes in. My uncle, let's call him Uncle K, had always been the leash of our family. Growing up, I watched him bounce from one failed venture to another, always with his hand out, ready to take but never to give. He was a smooth talker, could charm the birds from the trees, but his actions never matched his words. Everyone in the family knew it, but Grandpa, he always had a soft spot for K. Just helping out my family, he'd say, whenever anyone brought it up. But we all knew it was more than that. The turning point came when I visited Grandpa one afternoon. His once vibrant eyes seemed dull and he looked tired, more so than usual. Grandpa, is everything okay? I asked, concerned. He hesitated then said, It's your Uncle K. He's been asking for money again. I don't know what he needs it for this time, but I can't seem to say no. Alarm bells rang in my head. This was happening too often. Something felt off. Uncle K's visits had become more frequent and Grandpa's health was declining. I decided to keep an eye on things. The next time Uncle K came over, I was there, pretending to read a book in a corner, and I overheard their conversation. Dad, I just need a little more to get through this month, Uncle K was saying. K, I've given you money 3 times this month already. Grandpa replied, a hint of weariness in his voice. I know, Dad, but this is really important, I promise. I'll pay you back. I couldn't believe my ears, he was at it again. And Grandpa, bless his heart, was falling for it. I decided to confront Uncle K. Hey, what do you need the money for this time? I interjected, walking over. He looked at me, a flash of anger in his eyes before he masked it with a smile. Just some business troubles. You know how it is. I didn't buy it. I think Grandpa has helped you enough. It's time you sorted your issues yourself. Uncle K's demeanor changed then. He became aggressive, accusing me of not understanding family loyalty and meddling in things that didn't concern me. But I stood my ground. It is my concern when it affects Grandpa's health and well-being. The argument escalated and Grandpa, looking more distressed by the minute, tried to calm things down. But I was determined. I suggested to Grandpa that we look into Uncle K's business troubles. What we found was shocking. Uncle K wasn't just borrowing money, he was stealing it. He had set up a series of fake businesses and was funneling Grandpa's money into his own accounts. It was a scam and he had been doing it for years. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. How could he do this to his own father? We had no choice but to go to the authorities, and after investigating, Uncle K was arrested. I just hope Grandpa can find some peace in his remaining years, free from the burden of Uncle K's greed. And that's a wrap for today's episode at K-Korner. I hope these stories brought a smile to your face or got you thinking about the quirky, sometimes challenging, but always interesting journey of life. Remember, whether it's dealing with difficult customers, navigating family drama, standing up in a classroom, resolving neighborly disputes, or handling awkward situations on a flight, life is full of unexpected twists and turns. But hey, that's what makes it exciting, right? Don't forget to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe if you haven't already to stay updated with all our latest stories. Until next time, keep it simple, stay carefree, and always find the joy in the little things. This is Crown, signing off.